two versions of my childhood tapes. I was born in the mid-90s, 2 years after my brother. All the memories of our childhood were kept on VH tapes, tapes that we hadn't watched in almost 2 decades, because, well, who still owns a VH player? My brother Luke would soon turn 30, and I thought it would be a neat present to digitalize all our old videos. My mom kept them inside a box in our basement, labeled 1993-1999 A tapes. I had no idea what the A meant until I found the others. Our old basement was filled with all sorts of junk and memorable stuff of our past years. Dusty basketball with no air, our old inflatable pool, sneakers I still could wear if I gave them a good clean. I got lost in there for hours, looking through all the kinds of stuff, until I stumbled upon the box that looked just like the first one I found, except this one was hidden under a pile of old jackets. 1993-1999 B tapes. At this point, I obviously had no idea what the difference between them was, and my parents weren't home, so I couldn't ask them. They'd gone on a cruise. I'd let myself in with the key I'd kept after moving out, so I brought them both in my car, and it took a week after that, and I could pick them both up in boxes and a USB stick with all the videos from the shop. I watched a few of the first ones, which I wasn't born yet, just to check if everything worked fine. Then I put the stick into an envelope with a card so my family could watch them together after Luke's birthday and after my parents got back. 2 days after the party, my brother called me. He didn't tell me what was going on, but he commanded me to come over to his house as soon as possible. I'd never heard my brother sound more disturbed. What the heck, Max? My brother looked even taller when he was angry. Seemed like he had grown. I was a bit shorter than him, paler and weaker. My dark hair was curly and chaotic. His was all styled right and had the color of the honey. The only similarity we had was our greenish brownish eyes. I watched that shit with Ellie. You think that's appropriate for a 2-year-old? Can you at least let me inside before you start harassing me? I had no idea what you're talking about. He moved aside. Their living room was a mess, with toys, clothes, and crumbles everywhere. It had been like that ever since they got Ellie. It made me like my niece even more, bringing a little bit more chaos into my brother's sleek life. Are Ellie and Jacob not home? He shook his head. They went to Jacob's house. He's pretty angry with you. He sighed. Max, are you being honest? Why did you make those videos? How did you even... I moved the stuffed elephant from the sofa and sat down. I brought our old VH tapes to a place and I told you when I gave it to you. I thought you'd like to see them. Luke frowned. You look like you have no idea what I'm talking about. He got his laptop and sat me down. He opened a folder with 2 videos labeled Tapes A and Tapes B. Did you watch them? A few from the first one. The A ones? I nodded, without saying anything else. He opened file B. A video started playing. The date at the bottom said November 1994, with a description, park time. It started off with a dark scene. I thought at first, but as it turned out, it was just night. The quality wasn't great, but you could see there were trees and you could hear the occasional howl of an owl. There is a similar video in A1. It's me. I just learned how to walk and we're in the park having a picnic during daytime. So what is this? I asked. Wait. Suddenly, there was light. Somebody had lit a torch and shoved it into the ground. You couldn't tell who the person was because they were only shown the back and it was too dark. More torches followed, arranged in a circle. It was done with someone came with a child that looked a lot like Luke when he was little and placed the baby in the middle of the circle. Even with the light, it still looked strange and blurry. That were voices, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. What? I whispered. I was speechless and sick. Watching these turned my insides. I can't explain how or why it felt as if it was too unnatural for us to complain. A sort of filter was laid over it, the sound. I wanted it to stop, but at the same time I was too curious. Luke looked at me with concern on his face. I'm gonna fast forward to ones with you in it. June 1997, birthday. This was one of the daytime in our garden, but we were actually looking slightly different again. Colors much brighter, almost neon. Two boys appeared in frame, probably Luke and me. It must have been my third birthday, so Luke was 5. We were dressed in purple striped shirts and pants, but could only see our backs. We were running towards something that looked like a small bouncy castle, one that I don't remember ever having. We disappeared inside of it, and the camera zoomed out further and further. And then after all that, you could hear loud screams, but they didn't sound like they were coming from children. When the two of us came outside again, the camera was zoomed out, but you could see that we were still laughing and jumping, and there was something red staining our clothes and hands. Blood. I ran to the bathroom and threw up my lunch. When I got back, Luke was waiting for me with a bottle of water. Happened to Ellie as well. Kept throwing up. Also cried a lot. I didn't like the idea that my little niece saw that. I found this strange that she had such a strong reaction as well. How she understood that something was wrong, because typically nothing really bad happened in those tapes. They were just disturbing. Luke, I swear, I have no idea what that was. All I did was grab the boxes with tapes. Do you remember that birthday? He asked. Are you joking? We went back to the living room. Luke had closed the laptop. I remember your third birthday. Some of your kindergarten friends were there. Mom baked a cake. There was no bouncy house or whatever the hell that was. My stomach was still turning. I watched plenty far more gory stuff in my life. I have no idea why this affected me so much. Mom and Dad will be coming back tomorrow. We need to talk with them, I said in a determined tone. But Luke knew me well and probably heard the fear in my voice. I'd never been scared of my parents before, as far as I could remember. But I also know that they've been slightly particular when we were growing up. My parents were always kind and energetic. Our house has always been full of strange art, and they always traveled all the time. Even then, they never hurt us. If anything, they neglected us a little bit. But I don't remember anything scary ever happening. I can go alone. Look, Mom and Dad are a bit weird. It's probably some strange art project of theirs, but either way, I don't want to know what's up with that, Luke said. No, I'll come with you too. Maybe they'll be angry that we found them. Max, they literally kept them in a basement with an unlocked box. They wanted us to find them, or at least they didn't mind if we did. I wasn't exactly afraid of my parents, but of all the things I couldn't remember. I stayed with Luke that night. Jacob and Ellie were still at Jacob's parents' house. The next day we drove to our childhood home. Luke and I both stayed in our hometown after moving out. His house was a 20-minute drive from our parents. I lived a bit farther from both. When we reached the driveway, I saw my parents' car and felt a cold shiver. I wasn't sure how we should do this, what they would say. As it turned out, I didn't have to. My mom opened the door before I even rang the bell. Lukey, how sweet of you to stop by. She came closer to hug us, but Luke gently pushed her away. Where's Dad? The four of us need to talk. Before my mom could answer, he marched to the living room where my dad was reading a book. What the hell are the B tapes? My parents exchanged a glance. They didn't even try to act like they had no idea. Sit down, both of you, and calm down. It's nothing bad, my mom said. My dad sighed and put his book away. Then he got up. If anything, they looked annoyed that we disturbed their day. Luke and I sat next to each other on the sofa, and my parents were standing in front of us. For a moment, it felt like we were little boys again, getting in trouble for breaking something. Neither of you got hurt. We made them for a possibility, one that you didn't even get, my father said. Can you please talk less cryptic? I chimed in. It was the first thing I said. Those aren't real videos of your childhood, just remakes for your audition tapes. They were searching for children's stars. Luke didn't make the cut, and then we tried you, Max, but neither of you were chosen. Your mother took over. They, who are they? And chose for what? A movie? Luke asked. My parents exchanged another glance. Something like that. The filmmakers were looking for extraordinary children with specific instructions on how to show their personalities. The children were chosen to become part of a fantasy children's show, but neither of you were. Now Luke and I exchanged a look. I had all those questions. Why would they do that? Why would they do that to young children? Why did you never tell us about it? And why did those tapes make us sick? But the atmosphere shifted after our parents explained. Mom went to the kitchen and started cooking. Dad was blathering about their trip. They acted like this had been totally normal. That was the scariest part. How they thought those tapes were how normal they thought those tapes were when they even made a 2-year-old sick. I felt like I didn't even know my own parents and felt strangely out of place. Meanwhile, Luke looked like he would explode any second. Finally, he shot me a look and walked outside. I followed and we drove without saying another word to my parents. At first, neither of us were speaking. I suppose we both didn't know how to deal with the situation. After a while, Luke parked next to McDonald's. I thought he was just getting some food, but instead he turned to me with a serious look. There's something you don't know. When you were sleeping last night, I watched a few more of those tapes. I mean, they made me feel terrible, but I had to know if anything, really bad happened. I swallowed and Luke took a deep breath. Then he shook his head. There was nothing like that. The tapes were messed up in different ways, in ways that made you question reality. Okay? Now he was looking straight at me. You know how Mom said neither of us made the cut to be cast? I nodded. Well, after 1996, there was a third child in the tapes. And the more I think about it, the more I'm starting to remember things. I know it sounds insane, but I'm wondering if we had another sibling we forgot about. 2 versions to my childhood tapes. Part 2. I'm your family, okay? That's all that matters. I nodded, but the sinking feeling inside my stomach hadn't gone away. I asked Luke to drop me off at home. Jacob and Ellie were coming back from Jacob's parents, and I needed some alone time. I'd taken the USB stick with me. I had a feeling Luke would obsess about it and wouldn't be good for his family or himself. I, on the other hand, was single and lived alone. I had all the time and energy to go crazy.